Prediction questions produce more fence-sitting than any other type in Part 3. Maybe this, maybe that, it's hard to say, and the candidate thinks they are being appropriately cautious, when what the examiner actually hears is somebody with no position at all. The rule is the opposite of what most people do. Commit to the claim and hedge the confidence.
So 4 moves. 1. Claim, say what you think will happen, plainly. 2. Mechanism, explain what would cause it. The cause is what separates a guess from an argument. 3. Branch, if that holds, then what follows? And this is where the conditionals live. 4. And only now hedge, mark how sure you are. Notice that the hedge comes last, not first. Say what you think, then say how confident you are about it.
Six structures worth owning, and I want to draw your attention to the last one in particular because it is a genuine dividing line between learners and natives.
Will plus an adverb, will almost certainly, will probably, is likely to. We could well see, which is elegantly non-committal. I'd expect to see. It's only a matter of time before, which is strong. And the best one, I'd be surprised if it didn't. A double negative that native speakers use constantly and learners almost never do. That one phrase, used once, correctly, marks you out. Then finally, for the hedge at the end, though I'd hold that loosely, or I'd have said the opposite 10 years ago. The vocabulary. My guess is that which is direct without being arrogant. We could well see, for a real possibility. It's only a matter of time before for something you consider inevitable. I'd be surprised if it didn't, which we'll practice properly in a minute. I'd hold that loosely for your closing hedge. And prohibitively expensive, which is far better than very expensive and appears constantly in this kind of question. 6 more. And these are about consequence rather than prediction. The interesting consequence isn't something which sets up a surprise. Denser rather than wider, for a shape of change. Dormitories, for places people only sleep in. Viable again, for something that becomes possible once more. See that reverse, for a trend turning. And if that holds, which is your bridge from claim to consequence, a good prediction answer is not one that turns out correct. It is one that names a consequence the listener hadn't thought of.
Now the grammar. Because prediction questions are the natural home of conditionals and the examiner is listening for them specifically.
First conditional for the realistic branch. If the subsidies continue, uptake will keep rising. Present simple, then will. Second conditional for the counterfactual. If petrol were priced properly, half this argument would disappear. Past simple, then would, and note were, not was, which is the version examiners notice. Slipping between the two deliberately inside one answer is a very clear high-band signal, and it is easy to plan, because every prediction question has a branch in it somewhere. The upgrades. I think it will becomes my guess is that, or I'd expect to see. Maybe it will becomes we could well see, or it's likely to. It will definitely becomes I'd be surprised if it didn't, which is stronger precisely because it is understated. Very expensive becomes prohibitively expensive. But I'm not sure becomes, though I'd hold that loosely.
Let's practice that double negative properly, because the meaning sits entirely in where you put the stress. And getting it wrong makes the sentence confusing rather than impressive.
Say this out loud. I'd be surprised if it didn't. Wait on surprised, wait on didn't. That sentence means I'm quite confident it will, but it arrives as understatement, which is exactly why it sounds so English. Said flat, with no stress anywhere. A listener has to stop and work out what you meant, and that costs you. Said with those two stresses, it is one of the most natural things you can produce in the whole exam.
So, claim, mechanism, branch, hedge, in that order. Let's put one together.
How will cities change in the next 50 years? Claim. My guess is they'll get denser rather than wider. Mechanism, because extending infrastructure outwards has become prohibitively expensive. Branch. If that holds, the interesting consequence isn't housing at all. It's that street-level businesses become viable again in places that have been dormitories for 30 years. And hedge. Last, though I'd hold that fairly loosely, I'd have said the opposite 10 years ago. 4 sentences. 1 claim, 1 cause, 1 conditional, 1 honest admission of uncertainty.
3 complete answers now. Read along and listen for the conditionals switching.
Question 1. How will cities change in the next 50 years? My guess is that they'll get denser rather than wider, because extending infrastructure outwards has become prohibitively expensive. If that holds, the interesting consequence isn't housing at all, it's that street-level businesses become viable again in places that have been dormitories for 30 years. I'd be surprised if we didn't see that, though I'd hold it loosely, obviously. Question 2. Will people still read printed books in 50 years? Yes, and I'd be surprised if it didn't go the other way slightly. Print sales have already stopped falling. My guess is the paperback survives precisely because it does nothing else. It doesn't notify you. If attention keeps getting more expensive, an object that demands only one thing from you becomes more valuable, not less. Question 3. How might work change in the next 20 years? We could well see the 4-day week become normal in office work, though I'd expect it to arrive quietly rather than by law. If productivity holds, and the trials suggest it does, the pressure comes from recruitment, not legislation. If it were genuinely about output, we'd have done it already. So I suspect the real obstacle is that managers don't know how to measure anything else.
So, commit to the claim, give the mechanism, branch with a conditional, and hedge at the end rather than the beginning. Your practice questions are below this video.